And welcome to the Michael Zehr Show. Glad that hopefully, if you're not joining us live, you'll be watching this once it's uploaded. If you have any questions or comments that you'd like to ask myself or today's guest, who is Marion Short, put them in the comment section. We do monitor the comment section, and we will be happy to try and answer your question. So, Marion, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We're here. I know I always say this and I always kind of mess it up, but we're at the Rising Eagle Studios here at the Warrior Healing Center. And this is where we do our podcasts, our live streams every Friday. And then Thursday night, the veteran-owned businesses now, they're doing their own live streams. So the live streams here at the center are picking up. So I'd like to encourage any of our listening audience, if you have a hobby, whatever, I would love for one of our veterans out there to come in and talk once a week about this week in baseball, or something like that, or gardening, since your passion is gardening, come in and do a live stream show once every couple weeks or whatever, can't think of the right words, but
floats your boat.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat. There you go, since you're in the Navy. That's a good term to use. So let's get started with today's interview. Marion, again, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it so much for taking the time out. And if you could tell us a little bit about you, like where were you born, grew up, and that kind of stuff.
Well, I was born in Whittier, California, which is just outside of LA.
Oh, California boy, huh?
Well, born.
Surfer too, or no?
No.
Oh, okay, just born.
My parents were divorced when I was 5-6 years old, and my mom got physical custody of us.
Okay.
Technical custody of us. My dad, my mom told us, just take them. I don't want anything to do with them till they grow up. And so he took us back to where he grew up, which was in Indiana. So I grew up in a farm town.
Yeah.
Doing everything that farm kids do. By the time I was 12, 13 years old, I had 18 yards to mow. I had jobs baling hay and plowing and planting and everything that, like I said, farm kids do. I did some. I have some experience milking cattle and getting that done, hogs. So, just a lot of experience there. I have a lot of fun times. I remember walking down to the creek to go fishing or camping and stuff like that. I've always loved animals. And in 76, I enrolled in the Navy. And I went to boot camp in May of 77. And from there, I went to boot camp in Orlando.
Okay.
And then I went to Groton, Connecticut for sub school, where I was injured by a nurse. And
injured by a nurse? How does that happen?
She thought she had to clean my ears out, and she put a probe through my right eardrum.
Ooh.
And it didn't heal properly. And so that disqualified me from subservice, and ultimately I was discharged from the Navy because I had no equilibrium.
That's what I was wondering. Once your eardrum is punctured like that, if
Right.
It doesn't affect, and then if you're, especially in the Navy, going down and I could.
Yeah, so I couldn't stand up on the ship, and ultimately was discharged in December of 78.
Okay.
And
how long were you in for?
Active duty was just over a year and a half.
Okay.
And my enlistment being October of 76 threw me at 2 years and about 3 months. So I get a lot of the benefits and stuff like that from being fully service. I wish I could do it again.
So are you saying that you got out medically?
It was
on a medical retirement?
It was medical, due to medical conditions, but it was a regular honorable discharge. It was not for a medical discharge. And I've had problems ever since. with equilibrium and balance. I've had, even such things as riding a bicycle is hard.
Right.
Because I have to be careful with my balance.
Balance.
As I've gotten older, I've had a couple of falls in the last few months.
Hence why your arm is in a sling.
Yeah. So, it's not been a good year for me since I retired this year.
What part of Indiana did you live in? I forgot to ask you that.
I lived in a little town called Economy, and it's about halfway between Richmond and Muncie.
Okay.
On the eastern side of Indiana, north of I-70.
Okay.
There's 50, 60 houses in the town.
Wow.
I think we had 12 or 13 stop signs.
And, that many houses and that many stop signs, huh?
Yeah. Yep. Well, you get if you have 4 corners, you get one on each corner.
Yeah. Well, because I lived in Napanee. Had you heard of it? Did you know where that was?
I know where Napanee is.
Yeah, and we had a big Amish community there. Did you have that too? Where when you're driving, you have to be cautious of the buggies and
Yeah, they've actually expanded the territory down. It used to be there were no Amish. We had to drive an hour and a half to 2 hours to see any Amish. And now a lot of the farms, the older farms, have all been purchased by the Amish, and they farm them without the electrical stuff, without tractors.
Right. Isn't it amazing that they've carried those traditions on with all the changes and advances that we've had in technology, and they're still doing old school and putting plow to the horse. And I have seen a couple of different Amish communities that did allow you to drive a vehicle, but it had to be black, and it couldn't be like any power steering, power brakes, or
Yeah, there's actually a lot of changes have happened, and they don't all follow the strict codes that the have been passed down for generations.
Right.
To get by, because they want a telephone, so to get by with it, they'll do cell phones, or they'll have a phone at the end of their driveway, so it's off property per se, and they'll use that.
Or they hide them out in the cornfields.
They hide them out in the cornfield. They, some of them do own cars, so when the bishop comes by, they don't see the car.
Right.
They do a lot of public transportation. There's a lot of people just make a business out of having a van, and they'll take them places.
Right.
They get together, they pay for the van and stuff like that. That way, technically, they're not owners and drivers, but they have that vehicle available to them.
So were you in Florida then when you got discharged? I know you said you had your boot camp there, but then you said you went from there to where again?
So I left boot camp in Orlando and spent some time in the Florida Keys, and then went to Indiana to see my dad.
Okay.
And then went to Groton, Connecticut. And I was there until December of 77. And then I went to San Diego for ASW school.
Which is what?
Anti-submarine warfare.
Okay.
And you learn how to track submarines, sonar school, basic and stuff like that. And that facility is still there, but the NTC, the training center, is now gone. It's now a shopping mall. And
wow.
It's right, it's really like a 5-minute walk from the airport in downtown San Diego. So I used to walk there all the time. So once I was done with school, I flew up to my ship up in San Francisco.
Okay.
So I was in Hunters Point, went in the yards, and then we did sea trials in May and June and made our way back down. We stopped at Long Beach and then Seal Beach, loaded our nukes, and then went to San Diego, and we started our sea trials and stuff like that to get ready to go out on a Westpac, which happened in February, March of 79. But okay. I was already out by then.
I was going to say, so when you got out, you said that you had served just under 2 years and had an honorable discharge. So then where did you go when you got out? Did you stay there in California or?
I stayed in California for a little bit. At the time they would tell you, hey, you've served, you've done your time, go get unemployment and relax for a while. And I couldn't do that.
No, most military people can't.
And immediately enrolled in college, and since my mom was there, I was staying at her place and help out around there. And I ended up working two jobs, full time, and going to college,
And going to school. Check you out.
carried 14 credits in Cypress College, and then once the VA started paying my schooling money, I had quite a bit of money, so I took a month and I went to England and
Wow.
spent time with a pen pal that I'd had for 6 years.
Had you ever been over there before?
I'd never been over there. I'd never been out of country at that point.
Yeah. What was your experience like over
And
there?
I loved it. It was like going back to the World War II era. When you get out of the plane at Heathrow, you take a tube, you went to the Union Station, you come up, and it's just like walking into the old movies. You got this huge train station, and just the artwork and the people and all the signs in the different languages.
Right.
It was just, I loved it. It was just, I felt like I was in a movie. And the train I boarded to Bristol was a high speed train. And so we spent a few days in Bristol and went to my pen pal's graduation. And from there, we drove to Northampton. And the family would take me all over to England. So we went to Wookey Hole. We saw the first Gutenberg printing press that was in England. We saw Cheddar Gorge, which is where cheddar cheese actually originated from.
Really?
Yeah.
Not Wisconsin, huh?
Nope, not Wisconsin. And it's very different. It's very good. It's really creamy, and it's harder than the American cheddar cheese.
Okay.
And it's white. They don't color it like they do over here in the United States.
We color our cheese?
We color our cheese.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah, and everybody thinks it tastes different, but there's no flavor in food coloring. It's just food coloring. But so anyway, we saw a lot of things. I took a trip to London with my pen pal and a couple of her sisters, and we toured the BBC studios where her oldest sister worked, and she was a program director down there. And then I took a trip to Dover by myself, and I had a blanket, and I think I had a jacket, and I had about 10 pounds on me, which is the English money. And I walked the streets that night of Dover, and I bought a roll, and they sent me up the street to a deli, and I was able to buy some slices of meat for a sandwich, and they had lettuce and tomatoes there, so I was able to put together a sandwich.
Now, we don't have Google Translate back then. We didn't have apps that could tell you how to convert your money from one to other. So how did you learn all that stuff? They just
I got
live and learn?
I got into town, and I was looking around, and I saw the different things, and the English, it's English, but it's different than American. And you had to kind of look, and you can just see a store. And I knew I didn't have enough money really to go have a meal somewhere. And I went into the deli, because they were still open. It was probably about 5 o'clock at night. And he said, yeah, you can go over here and get a roll. You can come back. We'll get you some meat here, and we'll have the lettuce and tomatoes and stuff like that. We made a sandwich and used mayonnaise on it. And they wrapped it up for me. And I asked where the cliffs were they very far. And they said, well, yeah, you got the cliffs over there about a mile and or so many kilometers, and you can go up there to Dover Castle. So I walked around Dover Castle, and then I walked down to the cliffs and ate my sandwich. And I was going to stay there overnight because, like I said, I didn't have much money on me. So they told me it's safe to go up there and just sleep on the cliffs. And so I did. I rolled my blanket out, pulled it over me, and I laid there and I watched the hovercraft come across the English Channel all night long.
That has to be amazing to see.
It was crazy. It was really crazy. And I heard movement. And it was funny because I'm laying there, and I could still lay there today. I closed my eyes, and I could just, the grass was probably 8 or 10 inches tall. And I could hear people moving around and stuff like that. When I woke up in the morning, there was a person every foot. about a foot between them. People were real careful not to step on each other. I think there was probably 50 or 60 people when I went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, I would say there was 1,000 people just come up with a pillow or and a blanket and just roll out there and lay there all night long.
Wow.
And they weren't homeless. They just that was a
No, that's
camping
just
thing
like,
to them.
yeah.
And travelers like me, and it was crazy. I just enjoyed the heck out of it. And then the next morning, I walked down and I have a few hundred pictures that I took of the castle and the ferries and the hovercraft and stuff. So I went back down and I got something to drink and I got the train back to London because it was an early train going back. And the train I got to take was a steam train. So my trip to England, I was able to do the high-speed train, a
Right.
regular train, and then I got to do. They were still running steam engines on a regular route, and that was really cool because I love trains.
Okay.
So once I come back from England, I went back to college. And,
How long did it take you on that train trip?
It was only like an hour,
That's okay.
maybe an hour and 15 minutes. So, it's not bad because England's, I mean, it's big, but it's not that big. I think you can drive all the way across it in 3 or 4 hours.
So a high-speed train must have got you there in what, 5 minutes?
Yeah. So,
No, that's really great.
yeah, it was a nice trip.
Were you single at this time?
I was single.
Okay, and then what did you do to after you got back into London?
Once I got back to London, I met up with my pen pal and her family, and we went back to Northampton, and we spent another 2 weeks before I left, and then we took the train back down to London. I flew out of Heathrow, coming back over here. And
Did you already have a round-way trip, or
I did. I had a round
okay, all right.
trip. Yeah, I was able to get. I think I paid $750 for a round trip ticket out of LA.
Wow.
And it was a 10 to 12 hour nonstop flight.
Try getting those prices now.
Actually, it's not too bad. It's just that it takes longer because of all the COVID stuff and immigration
Security.
checkpoints. At the time, as an American, I mean, I had to go in through immigration there, which took about 15 minutes. It wasn't that bad at that time. And then when I come back, I just had my American passport, stuff like that. I walked right in through the line. You didn't have to wait anything like that. And they had separate lines. So everybody out of country that was not an American citizen had to go through separate lines than the American citizens. So
when you came back to the States, then what was next?
After that, I went back to school for a while. And then I really didn't like the school. My mother had, her idea was to open up a chain of beauty salons. So by that time, they were doing beauty school, and she wanted me to go. So I went to a couple of different schools, and she went to a different school, but we were all in school at the same time.
Okay.
But we were all in different schools. That way we got different education and different things to compare back and forth. And then I was about 2 weeks from graduation, or maybe a month from graduation, and we got in a fight. I like to work with my hands, and I was doing really good in school, but I was making candy on the side to pay for extra expenses and stuff like that. And my mom and my sister got into my candy, and I had a big order for sale, and they basically ate all the good stuff out of it.
Oh no.
And so we had a big fight, and I moved out, and I went to live under a bridge, so I became homeless. And one of the girls at school talked to her boyfriend, and they let me stay there for a couple of weeks. And then my stepdad came back and talked to me, and so I stayed with my grandmother for a few months, and then I was able to put together enough money, and I left, and I went back to Connecticut because I loved the Groton and New London area. So I went back to some friends that I'd met there.
Okay.
and basically moved. I was going to stay there, and we were talking about cooking, and they told me about a college up in Providence, and so I was working at a bakery.
Well, then, if that's what happened to the schooling when you said you were about a
I
month
just walked
short?
away from the school.
No credits or anything for
I
that
don't have any.
semester?
Yeah,
Or
I don't have
wow,
any credits for that. I have the experience,
right?
but and like I said, I like working with my hands, but I didn't like working cutting hair. I didn't like the perms and stuff like that. Uh, but I wanted to keep working with my hands, so
Standing on your feet all day.
yeah.
That's
But you
hard.
do that in a
Yeah.
bakery.
Do you? Yeah,
So
you
I went
do.
into I worked in a bakery in uh, just outside of Yale University, and I did that until because I moved in October, and at the beginning of the year, I had applied to Johnston Wells College up in Providence for their culinary program, and I was accepted. And we got me funded and everything like that. So I moved to Providence, and I went through school. I got really sick. My lungs collapsed on me. My right
Oh my
lung
gosh.
fully collapsed, and my left lung was partially collapsed while I was going to school because I was working in a really dusty warehouse, and my apartment was really cold. I had no heat
Oh,
and I was up on the third floor. So, and I tell the story, but this was actually happened. I would come home from work and I would chip the ice off the bathtub water because it had a surface layer that would freeze. So I'd start running the hot water and run my hot water to get cleaned up so I could take a bath to go to school. And then I would come home at night after school and go to bed. And I had, to begin with, I had no money. And my landlady, Anna Picozzi, the old Italian lady, and she came to me one day and she says, Marion, you have no furniture. I said, I have no money. And she says, we need to fix that. So she
oh,
came to me a couple days later and she says, Marion, can you come up with $100? And I said, yeah. I said, I can do that this week because I get paid. I've already paid the rent and everything like that. She says, yeah, you're good. So on Friday, after I got paid, I had $100 and I gave it to her. And she says, okay. And I took off on my bicycle and I rode my bicycle from Providence down to Newport. And I camped out at the airport down up in Jamestown. And I toured on my bike. I travel all over Rhode Island on my bicycle. So when I got home Sunday afternoon, I had a bed, a dresser, a dining room table, two chairs, a couch. I had a little camp stove. I had a refrigerator for the first time, and all for $100.
wow.
And that's just the neighborhood I lived in was an
Was it moved
Italian
in for
neighborhood.
you too?
What's that? It
Was
was
it? It was all moved in for you and
moved
everything.
in, and everything. Yeah,
Jeez.
and it's just the Italians were like that. I mean,
Nowadays, you'd have to pay $100 just to get people to move the furniture.
yeah, and
Wow.
I loved the neighborhood. It was an old Italian neighborhood,
Right.
and I know the families were there, and I was told where I was allowed to go. If I wanted to go somewhere across the street, then I had to get permission because it was a different family ran that section, and it was great. I mean, I had anything that happened to me that was not good in that neighborhood was taken care of by the families because when you move in and they understand who you are and stuff like that, you're accepted into the neighborhood and you're part of the protective society. They take care of you, and it's something our culture has gotten away from.
Right.
Neighbors are, you might know their first name, and it's crazy. We lived up in Phoenix for 30 years after we got married, and we didn't know our neighbors. Our next door
Yeah.
neighbor, I mean, just didn't
I'm
know.
guilty of that. I know them by name, but that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just seem to keep to
So,
ourselves these days,
so after
sadly.
Rhode Island, and going to school, I went as a chef down to the Opryland Hotel.
So how long did it take for the culinary school?
Well, with me getting sick, it took 4 years
Okay.
because I had to leave for a year, and I took a year off, came back out to recover because I was really, really sick.
Is it usually a 2-year degree or a
It's a
4-year
two-year
degree,
degree,
or is it? Okay.
and I had started in the culinary program, and I did a couple of trimesters, and then I got sick and left for a year. When I came back, they had started a pastry program. So I redid into the pastry program because it was more specialized. So I
Okay.
went in and did more of that and became a pastry chef. And after graduation, I went to the Opryland Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee.
That had to be something. I've never been to Nashville, and I hear it's pretty exciting
It
there.
is phenomenal. In 1985, they had 3.5 acres of gardens under glass, and you have balconies on your rooms that face into the gardens, and there was all kinds of birds and flowers, plants, and stuff like that. And the change, and I think we had about 3,000 rooms. Now, when you walk in, there's I think 8 acres of gardens under glass. They have canals, kind of like the canals up in Vegas, where you can ride the canal boats through the hotel. Um, and it's just tripled in size. It's a phenomenal facility to walk around in.
So we got a couple comments here. Thank you all for joining us. Uh, Warrior Healing Project. Burr, oh my gosh, today folks would be like, when you were describing what it was like chipping the ice off your bathtub and stuff like that. And then Dan Shaw, he wants to know if you know how to make a good German chocolate cake.
Yeah, I've made them. I've made my toppings and fillings all by hand, using basically a caramelized sugar recipe with the coconut and pecans, and a light colored chocolate cake. You don't want to use a dark colored. It's a different style
Right.
than that. And you use that for a black forest.
So how long were you working at Opryland for? How long were you there for?
I worked at Opryland about 8 months.
Did you get to see any of the acts that were kind of?
I did. I got to
Oh,
meet Chet Atkins,
look,
and
my dad loved him.
the thing about the Opryland Hotel at the time, it was called a factory facility, and what that means is you have some facilities that don't get as many people, and they do more exquisite decorations. They do more exquisite foods and stuff
Right.
like that. The Opryland, because well, for example, one week we had 2 parties, and each party was over 5,000 people in each party.
Wow.
So when we made dessert, like say cheesecake for one party, you're making about 5,200 pieces. So you don't have time to get really
You don't get
fancy.
to personalize them, right?
Right. And we did have small parties and stuff like that of 10, 12, 15 people, and we do stuff for them. But on the big party, it was mass production.
Okay.
So there was 19 people in the pastry shop, and we would take a full sheet of cheesecake, and they'd run it through the bandsaw and start around the table. And by the time it would come back, it was plated and topped and ready to go. And we did this with cheesecake and brownies and baked Alaskas. And that was really cool because you'd be making the meringue, and it would start off as just a slice. And by the time it came back around, it had already been meringued and blowtorched. And
I was gonna say,
set back up. Yeah, it was crazy.
I didn't even know I liked it one time, but my wife and I had gone out. I think it was our 10th wedding anniversary, someplace in Tucson, and they served it to us. And
Yep.
oh my gosh, it was, because by the name of it, baked Alaska. I mean, that just doesn't sound appetizing
Right.
to me. But man, when you taste it, ooh.
Yeah.
Same thing with like creme brulee, and I like the stuff where you do the torching and
Right.
for those desserts. But then again, I have a sweet tooth, so
There used to be a chain of restaurants, Greek restaurants, up in Phoenix called My Big Fat Greek Restaurant.
Yes, we had one here.
Okay, and they're
You know where Target is, right?
yes,
And then you know where that I think it's Jersey Mike's, and there's
right.
yeah, that place there. Before that was there, there was a building, a different building, and it started out as like an Italian restaurant. I think it was like Johnny Carino's or something, and then it went barbecue. But anyways, yeah, we did have a like big fat Greek restaurant, and Opa, man, it was good food.
Yeah, it is.
Good food. So where did you go then from Opryland? You're saying?
From Opryland, I went back up to Connecticut, Rhode Island.
Okay.
And the reasoning behind that was we got a new chef in the pastry shop, and he did not follow the policies. So he was having people come in, and like my hours were pretty much set at 6 o'clock, and if I need to work late, I work late. And he come in and says, "No, I want you to show up at 3 o'clock in the morning." And I started to, and the executive chef came and says, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Because our new chef has told me to."
Right.
And he says, "Are you clocked in?" I said, "No." He said, "Not to clock in until 6." So there was a lot of stuff going on like that. And after a couple of months, I just gave my notice because
Yeah, I don't blame
I
you.
was working 4 or 5 hours a day off the clock.
Yeah.
And we found out he was ordering stuff from outside the system. Um, Instead of going through and ordering in their processes, he would have vendors come in outside, and then they'd have to try to get their money from the Opryland Hotel. And so there was a lot of stuff. Then there started being harassment issues with the girls in the shop and stuff like that by him. And so I gave my notice, and I talked to the executive chef. He actually ended up getting fired for a lot of different reasons, but I had already given my notice, and I just told the chef, I said, it's not fair to me. It's not fair to give my notice and then stay here with everybody else knowing that things are not right. And I said,
Okay.
I wanted to go back. So I went back to Rhode Island, and I worked in several bakeries.
Are you married by this time or still single?
Oh, no, I was still single.
Okay.
And so I went back to Rhode Island. I left there back in '89, so I was another 4 years, and worked a lot of different places. Did restaurant management training, and
You have a good resume, huh?
it's extensive. I've done all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of food related stuff. I was also a scoutmaster with Troop 3 of Pawtucket, which was the oldest Boy Scout troop in Rhode Island. And we went climbing Mount Monadnock in New Hampshire, and I injured my leg coming down the mountain.
Oh.
And I spent 6 months, 7 months basically learning how to walk again and stuff like that. And since I couldn't work, I didn't have any income. And at the time, they didn't really give you disability. I couldn't get a food box. I sold off all my stuff, and I ended up back out in California. And so that was in 1989. And I started helping my family because by that time my mom had a bar and a restaurant in
So she
Moreno
went
Valley.
from haircuts and all that into a bar business, huh?
Yes, she did.
Okay.
And a lot of other things
Okay.
that we won't talk about.
Well, there's nothing against owning multiple businesses or anything like that. I mean, it sounds like she's pretty entrepreneurial.
Yeah, she was, but she wouldn't stay with anything.
Okay.
She would build it up, make a little bit of money, and move on.
All right.
So she did.
Nothing really held her interest.
Nothing held her interest for very long.
Okay.
So I was helping them, and she did some stuff that wasn't legal. And yeah, well, she got caught.
Oh, okay.
And she lost her liquor license. So when she lost her liquor license, she couldn't run the bar like a bar because people want to drink.
Right.
And she got a beer and wine license, but that wasn't enough to bring in the people that she wanted. So she ended up closing that, and she opened up a porcelain doll shop because one of her hobbies was
porcelain
making
dolls.
porcelain dolls.
Collecting
So
or making them?
we made them.
Made them, okay.
So she made the little typical baby dolls and stuff like that, but she also made lace draped dolls, which were really fancy, and it was 100% lace or porcelain. And there's a big process to it where you take your liquid porcelain slip and you soak organic fibers in it. So anything like a cotton lace or a wool piece of wool, something
Right.
like that, and you could drape a shell, and you just basically build a doll. You design the dresses and stuff like that to go on them, and then when you fire it, that organic material burns out. So you'll have a piece of porcelain that is the cloth, it's the shape, but there's nothing left inside. It's hollow. So it could be as thick as a hair. You could take hair and dip it in your porcelain, fire it, and then it becomes hollow and it shrinks down.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's
Who
really
knew?
cool.
Who knew?
So I have, I think I have 30 dolls that my family made. I made dolls along with her. But anyway, she had the doll shop in Moreno Valley, and this woman came in, and she brought her daughter, who was 18 years old at the time, and my brother was making slip. We used to buy the powder and mix our own slip and everything. And they had talked to my mom about taking lessons to make dolls.
Okay.
And I was off doing something else. I was doing taxi cab, driving a taxi cab in Moreno Valley part-time, and then helping with the doll shop. So at night, that night, my brother said, "Hey, you know, this woman's coming in to take doll lessons. She's got a cute daughter, and I want to hit on her because she's cute. She's really nice." And I said, "Okay." Well, I'm sitting there. I'm carving some clay to make a centerpiece for a carousel because I was doing carousel horses and the platforms. But at the time, you could not buy the centerpiece, which is the organ and with the mirrors on and stuff for the centers of the calliope. And so they walk in, and I'm not paying any attention. And my mom sits them on the other side of the table from me. So the daughter and I are looking at each other, and her mom starts nudging her, "Hey, you know, you need to talk to him." And the daughter's, "Mom, stop." And my brother said that at one point he looked up and he could see lightning go between her daughter and I, and her name is Shelley. And so we started talking, and we went for a walk a little bit later, and basically we've been married now 30 years and about 7 months.
Wow.
And we have a son.
Lightning strikes.
And lightning strikes. And so we've been together. We dated for about 3 years. And our lives just, through all the upheaval, we left California. I drove a truck for a little while. And then,
18 wheel?
18 wheel.
Okay. So then you had to get a CDL?
I had my CDL.
Oh, you already had it. Okay.
No, I did have it. I'd just gotten it. And drove a truck, and I drove for Swift for 3.5 years, and then I went local around Phoenix, and I drove acid to the different mines, so I was all over the place handling acid, and I enjoyed it. It was hot in the summertime, obviously, but my wife said that, you know, that's a lot of work because you're not making as much money now as what you were with Swift, and so I got out of that, went back into the kitchen because I could work 24 hours straight in the kitchen.
You have to do what you love. I mean, no matter what is going on, you know, sometimes you just have to find that passion. And then when you find it, it just like money doesn't really matter because you're doing it for the love of what you're doing, not for the money. That's why we have school teachers.
Yeah, and that's crazy because, you know, the restaurants...
We have underpaid school teachers, I mean.
Oh, yeah. So. Well, the culinary field, too. They don't want to pay.
Right.
You have to be make a name for yourself, you have to work ungodly hours. You never have a weekend off because in the pastry shop, the biggest time is Christmas and Easter, and they want you in the shop. You got to be making the products for them. And I'm an old school baker. I'm an old school. I don't like to use mixes. I don't like to take stuff out of the freezer and use it. I want to make all my stuff from scratch.
Wow.
And
That is old school.
And that's what I enjoy. I mean, weigh it out. You learn how to do it. A lot of the stuff, it gets freezer burnt. It picks up a flavor in the freezer. So I really just don't like to do pre-made stuff.
How do you get your recipes? Do you just like get them out of books or stuff like that, or do you kind of
Get them out of
concoct your
books.
own?
I've got recipes that I used when I was working at the different bakeries in Rhode Island. I
Okay.
research stuff. I'll lay at night and I'll dream of a cake and decorate a cake, and I'll next time I have the opportunity, then I'll do that cake just to see how it turns out.
Wow. That's fascinating.
I have enough cookbooks I could fill this wall from floor to ceiling.
Just so you know, I have a huge sweet tooth, so.
But yeah, I do. Going to yard sales, I'll buy. You'll find the little recipe book in the corner. They want usually like 50 cents or $1, and you get all these old recipes.
Right.
So I have a lot of stuff that's 100 years old. You use a pinch of this or a handful of this. They don't have it measured out in cups and ounces.
Exactly.
And stuff like
That's
that.
always to taste.
Right.
And sometimes they say to taste. What does that mean? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, and everybody's taste is different.
different. There you go.
So I have a couple of cookbooks from the 1860s. I have the remnants of an Appledore cookbook from 1863, I believe it is. One of my biggest treasures that I have is I have the personal cookbook from the 1940s from Admiral Chester Nimitz. I have his
How did you get
personal
that?
cookbooks. My mother-in-law
Okay.
has a friend, and that friend gave it to my mother-in-law because they were talking about me, and she said, "Oh, he might like this," so she gave it to me. And my mother-in-law's, I don't know who Chester Nimitz is. He's supposed to be some kind of a big wig.
Yeah, just
And
somebody.
I said, "Oh yeah, I know who he is." And yeah, so I have that in safekeeping at my house.
If you've
Part of
gotten
my
a ship
collection.
named after you, chances are you did something pretty significant.
Yeah.
So,
So,
how did your love for gardening come about? Because you're doing the baking. Is that from back when you were farming days?
it was back,
Or
yeah, because I mean, my dad had at one point we had a garden that was about 2 acres in size, and we had a small one at the house, and it's just in me. It's not, I do it because it gives me pleasure to see the stuff grow. I grow all kinds of vegetables. I grow fruits. I love tomatoes. I just love seeing the plants come up and produce, and then I share. When I have a lot of stuff, I don't keep it. I'll bring a lot of it into homeless facilities
Right.
and stuff
And
like
then
that.
for those of you that don't know that are watching, Marion is one of the cooks here for the Cooks Club here at the Warrior Healing Center. Or do you just bring in stuff to help assist them?
I do both.
Both?
Um,
Okay. I thought you
felt-
were part. I thought, did I blow that one?
Yeah, no, I was going to do some special stuff and not say anything, just bring it in this morning.
Uh-huh.
But when I fell yesterday and I hurt my elbow really bad, it's not broke, but it feels like crap. I was going to make some chocolate mousse and bring in some chocolate mousse to go with the lunch today.
Oh,
And
poor Dan.
but anyway, and I was going to do some homemade rolls. I've got a honey roll recipe that there's honey instead of sugar in the roll. They're a
Oh.
soft, a honey yeast roll, so they're real flavorful. And then you baste them with honey when they come out of the oven, so they get kind of a crispy honey flavor on the outside.
And you bring in a lot of your baked goods for the bagel and brew too, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So if you ever want to taste some of John's delicious delectables, uh, I don't know where I got that. It just kind of rolled off the tongue. I said John when it's Marion.
Yep.
But anyhow, if you want to taste some of Marion's delectables, delights, man, I'm just tongue twisted right now. Anyhow, come in on our Bagels and Brew that we do every third Thursday of the month that we have. It starts at 0900, goes to 1100 hours. And try some of this stuff because didn't you do like the cinnamon rolls or something?
I didn't do the cinnamon rolls last time. I did a big cut fruit platter.
I was here 2 weeks ago, or
Yeah.
2 months ago, so I wasn't at the last one. What did you
Yeah.
make at that one?
I did the big cut fruit platter.
You do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
so I carved the fruit and stuff like that. And brought
Is
that
that fruit that you grow at home too?
No, this was all purchased
Okay.
because my melons and stuff like that aren't ripe yet.
Do you get your fruit from people in the area, or do you go to the different stores, or?
I travel around a lot, sometimes up in Phoenix, sometimes up in Tucson, because I periodically have to go up there. I've also been out to Apple Annie's out in Wilcox and got peaches.
Okay.
So I canned some peach butter, and then I froze
Okay.
peaches to have fresh peaches
Well,
in the wintertime.
where's one of your favorite places to get fresh fruit that you found here in our area? Because I know Apple Annie's is up in what, Wilcox?
That's
I
up in
think?
Wilcox. I actually keep forgetting to go over to the farmers market on Thursdays because I'm in the model train club. And
Ah.
on Thursday mornings, we're actually sitting in Carl's Jr. talking about trains and trying to fix all the political stuff going on in the world. So by the time I get out of there, I forget and I go home to fix lunch for my wife and I.
What is one of your biggest, we know what your passions are as far as like baking, cooking, gardening, which, oh, by the way, you don't know this because Marion shared this with me off camera. He also bottles his own juices, you
Yes.
said, and teas.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that before I ask my
If you go buy tea at the store or juices and stuff, they're very expensive. So I'll bottle my own, and I'll make and I'll reuse the water bottles. I'll buy it and then empty it out, and then fill it right back up with homemade tea. I use Splenda because I like my tea really sweet.
Okay.
But I'll do juices, lemonades, peach, watermelon, like the Mexican juices you can get. Jamaica, I'll bottle that.
When
And
you do your
sometimes-
tea, do you do like the sun tea, or do you brew your own, or how?
I do sun tea. You don't want to bottle and keep because sun tea doesn't get boiled because enough to kill the bacteria and stuff like that that'll be in a tea bag.
Okay.
So it's good for the day, and then you need to make a fresh batch the next day.
Really?
Yes.
I had never, man. Here I haven't done it in years, but back in like the '80s, man, we used to put one of those things in the refrigerator and drink out of it for 2-3 days.
Yeah, you really shouldn't do that.
Did you guys hear that? You should not be doing that. If you make sun tea, make sure you drink it every day and then pour it out and make new. I did not know that. Very interesting.
Yeah.
What about like canning? Do you do any canning?
I do some canning. I'm actually got some new jars. I'm going to can some tomatoes, and I can peach butter.
Okay.
And I forgot to bring it this morning. I was going to bring some peach butter over this morning, and pickles. Like to make
Okay.
pickles. We do bread and butter and dill pickles and stuff.
Now, when you said butter, that just, I had a flashback to watching Press My Luck last night. And this guy won a year's worth of butter. I think it was like for like $9,000 and some dollars. I mean, people love butter that much. Is butter that good? I mean, I always thought butter wasn't healthy for you.
Well, if you look at the big scheme of things, butter is actually healthier than any of the oleomargarines and stuff like that you buy, like Country Crock and some of these other brands. For the simple reason is these companies have developed where they take soybean oil
Okay.
and they add, and which is not good for you, and then they add chemicals which your body will not digest,
Which are
and
definitely not good for you.
then they process them by adding hydrogen to make it solid, and your body doesn't process that. So you're eating all these chemicals as to compared to butter or milk, your body processes that. So it's actually a lot healthier than all these chemically treated foods that we eat nowadays.
Is that because butter is made from dairy? I mean,
Yes.
it's pure dairy.
It's pure dairy. You can make butter at home. You can buy whole milk or heavy cream, and you can put it in a mixer and turn it on low, and slowly the butter fat that's in the milk or cream will collect on the paddle of your mixer and separate out, and you can literally take it off, shake it out, and you will have fresh butter on your paddle for your mixer, and you'll have skim milk.
Wow.
And
Very
then if you want to add
interesting.
sugar or salt to it, you can do that, or you
Yeah.
can just eat it like that, and you'll have regular butter. And then if you take your butter and melt it, and then let it set back up, you'll have a couple layers. And one is called ghee, and the other one is a heavy butter. And ghee is used for your fancy dishes and stuff like that.
Right.
And it has less of the lactic acids and sugars in it than whole butter does.
Very interesting. You could just see, that's what I'm saying. You could come on here and do a live stream like, once a week, once a month. I mean, it's totally up to you. I don't want to put any pressure on you or anything, but you got such fascinating stories and ideas and recipes to share with us. And I think that there are a lot of people that maybe aren't watching live now, but might watch live later. And they might see this and think, wow, I didn't know that, because you educated me. So I'm sure there are other people out there too that are along that same lines.
And I learned that by accident.
Oh, you did?
In the Opryland Hotel, we used to make chocolate mousse.
Right.
Okay. And we'd start off with 3 gallons of heavy cream. And you have to whip it to get your whipped cream out of it, but you can't whip it too much because then it separates. So before that point of separation, you have to stop and you pull it out. And we used to fold it with a non-dairy whipped topping to stabilize it. But once in a while, the kids would walk away, and all of a sudden you start hearing sloshing, and you'd have 3 gallons of butter and cream. So what we would do then was put it in a strainer, and we would then take in a clean bucket, we would put the butter in a clean bucket, and then the kitchen would take the skim milk because they used it for sauces and stuff like that, and we would take and use the butter for baking.
So how did you make that harden? You have to put it in the refrigerator.
It gets hard naturally.
And then it does?
Yeah.
Okay.
So once your paddle's going around in the
Well, you
butter,
did
it's
say
like
that,
the
didn't
old
you?
butter churn,
Right.
with like the big tube with the paddle.
Yeah.
They go up and down, and the girls would sit there for hours, and that's what they're doing, is they're creating butter.
Yeah, you did tell me that earlier. I forgot. That's so cool. So we've discussed a little bit of farming, your Navy history, baking, so much. But what else is there? You got anything else you got to share with us? There's gotta be more, right?
I love animals.
Animals.
I have pictures of me walking up to rhinoceros in the Whipsnade Zoo in England and petting them, and because at the time they just had a regular old fence and with 8 by 8 inch holes, and you could actually pet the rhinos and the other animals. That was the only separation, and so I wasn't afraid. Wouldn't scare them. I didn't move fast. I've pet wild buffalo before and stuff like that. So when we lived up in Phoenix, I started collecting birds, and I was going to do a gourmet egg business. So I got this idea that I can make money by selling pheasant eggs. And I bought 500 pheasant hens, chicks.
500?
500. And I bought some males, and one of my males grew up. He actually won Best in Show at the Arizona State Fair. and he was a great big ringneck pheasant. And I had all these hens. At one time, I had over 850 birds in a big aviary on a horse ranch.
How many do you have now?
And I have I have 5 birds.
5 birds now?
I have 2 Indian ringneck parakeets, and I have 3 finches. And what happened was I had a heart attack.
Okay.
And I couldn't do the work at the horse ranch. And the lady just told me to get my stuff and get my birds and leave. And so I ended up just having to get rid of all my birds.
That had to be hard, because being an animal lover myself,
Yeah.
it's not an easy thing to have to
Yeah. So I did that.
So you said you have 4 birds?
I have 5 birds.
5 birds. And then what else?
I have 2 dogs.
2 dogs.
And I have...
What kind?
One's a lab mix and the other one's a Chihuahua.
Okay, what are their names?
Sebastian is my lab mix, and he'll be 5 this year. I guess he's 5 now. I got him 5 years ago in November. He was 3-4 months old at the time.
Okay.
And then the Chihuahua was about 12. And then I have...
What's the Chihuahua's name?
That's Penny.
Penny.
Yeah,
And she rules the roost, right?
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
And she's copper colored, so that's my son named her Penny. And then he named my dog Sebastian because he's all black, except he's got each paw is white, and then if you stand him up at his hind legs, his whole chest is white. So he looks like he's wearing a tuxedo like Sebastian Cabot.
Oh.
So my son named him Sebastian.
And for those of you that don't know who Sebastian Cabot is, and I hope I'm not giving away anything here, he played the nanny or butler or whatever on Family Affair, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Got it right. Well, the memory, especially when you get older, it just plays tricks on you. And you think, and then you'll remember something that really didn't happen, but you'll think it happened. And, don't even get me started on that.
So I have the 2 dogs. I have the birds. I have a clown knife that's about 25 inches long.
Okay, I have to ask, what's that? I don't know what that is.
It's a knife that looks like a butcher knife. That's why they call them a knife fish.
Okay.
And it's kind of hard to describe other than he's really tall and narrow and long, but he literally looks like a butcher knife. You can grab a hold of his snout and it looks like you can cut vegetables and stuff like that.
So you have an aquarium?
I have a 125-gallon aquarium.
Okay.
And he's the only fish that lives in there, other than the fish he likes to enjoy snacking on. And I have 9 turtles. I have 8 red ear slider turtles and 1 yellow, I think it's a yellow belly cooter. And then I have 3 African sulcata tortoises. And one of them weighs about 125 pounds, and it's bigger than a laundry basket.
They'll probably outlive us too. Tortoises.
They live around 150 years on average.
Isn't that something?
Care of. Wow. Yeah, one of the largest sulcata or tortoise species in the world.
Wow. So in closing, is there any last kind of words you want to share with us or anything, or any shout outs or highs or anything you'd like to say?
Well, I also like model trains.
Right.
And I belong to the Arizona, or the Cochise Western Model Railroad Association, which is located here in Sierra Vista. The club has been in existence for 50 years, so we're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year.
And you said the meetings are at Carl's Jr.'s?
We have on Thursday morning, we do coffee and just sit and try to fix the world.
That's every Thursday?
And every Thursday.
At what time?
At about 9 o'clock.
Okay.
And then on Tuesdays and Thursday nights at the clubhouse, we run trains.
Where's the clubhouse?
And it's on Fort Avenue.
Okay.
And it's right in front of the old water tank for the Liberty Water.
Yes.
And so you can come in there and you can become a member. And once you become a member, you have full keys, full access to the clubhouse. You can run trains and work on trains. And sometimes we don't run trains. We just sit and talk or help each other. We work on trains and we work on our layout and stuff like that.
Do you guys have a Facebook site or a web page
do.
or anything that?
We do have a web, Cochise Western Model Railroad Association. You can look
Okay.
it up there and get a lot more details.
All right.
But, you know,
Well, Marion, thank you so much for sharing your fascinating story with us, man. I could sit down here for another hour. You know, I got to keep having. I'm going to have to ask my previous guests to come back on because a lot of times they still had a lot more that they wanted to share, and I love talking to our veterans and hearing their stories. I think it's important, and I think that your stories need to be told.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much for coming in and sharing that with us today.
You're welcome.
A few quick announcements. I forgot to say these last Thursday or last Friday. Jeez. I don't know what happened last week, but that interview with Phyllis was just so emotional for me. With it just got me, and events didn't even think about it. So here's what's going on today. Starting at 1600 hours, they are having the grand opening at Doc's Waterhole. Now this is a veteran-owned business. It's right behind the Warrior Healing Center over here on Frontage Road, right next door to Pamper Me Sweets, if you don't know where that's at. And again, that starts at 1600 hours tonight, and it's a country dance theme type bar from what I understand. So make sure you get down there and support our veteran-owned businesses. We would really appreciate that. Also today at 17:30, going until 19:30, at the VFW is going to be the Disabled American Veterans Chicken Fried Steak Dinner. And on Sunday, August 7th, that is Purple Heart Day. That's a day to sit back and reflect and honor those that were wounded in combat and received the Purple Heart. So if you know of any Purple Heart recipients, make sure to thank them, give them a shout out. And again, that will be all day, and that's starting this Sunday. On Monday, August 8th, starting at 17:30 hours, going to 18:30 is the 5 Treasures of Qigong. That will be taking place here at the Warrior Healing Center. Let's see. What did Dan say here? I love country music, just not from my country. On Monday, you got me there, Dan. On Monday, August 8th, starting at 1800, going to 1900, we have the Team Red, White, and Blue meeting. That'll be taking place at the Rookie Sports Grill. I believe that's over there behind Denny's, right?
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
Yes.
And on Tuesday, August 9th, starting at 0900, going to 1200 hours, and then starting again at 1300, going to 1600 hours, is the Healing with Art. It's going to be gel plate printing revisited, and it's going to be in the Warrior Healing Center main conference room. And then also on Tuesday at 1730 to 1900 hours, it is the veteran-owned business check-in. And the Warrior Healing Center is really big in promoting and helping our veteran-owned businesses within our community. So if you are a veteran-owned business, please come in next Tuesday at 17:30 and check it out and see what it's all about. That will be in the Wayne Conference Center. On Wednesday, August 10th, starting at 10 o'clock and going to 1200 hours, is Painting with Sue. That's Sue Thatcher. She's a pretty famous local painter here in the area. She's coming in to give a class, and she will be giving some techniques on how to paint. So that's with Sue Thatcher on Wednesday, again from 10 to 12. I got these stupid
Shakes,
tremors.
tremors.
And when I'm holding papers or rattled. And lastly, on Saturday, August 13th, starting at 1100 hours, going to 1600 hours, we're having an open house. They are having an open house over at the Dragon's Keep Inn, and that is in Tombstone. They were the veteran-owned business that was on the show last night. So on Thursday nights, I'm going to have to find out from Eric exactly what time it is. I'm thinking it's 1500 hours or 1700 hours, but every Thursday night, Robert and Eric sit down with a local veteran-owned business, and so make sure to check out their live stream. So that's all I have here from the Warrior Healing Center. If you get a chance, come by the front desk and say hello today. And Marion, again, thank you. Oh, one last thing before I forget. It's not highlighted on here, but today is
First Friday.
First Friday. What is it called again?
First Friday.
First Friday. First First Friday, or all right? Let me look on the schedule.
Friday, but they're doing a macaroni and cheese themed luncheon. So there's all kinds of different types of foods that are made with macaroni and cheese.
Okay.
And there's rolls, and I'm not sure if there's desserts, but there's rolls and drinks, and there might be some salad in there. But over the past 10 days, we've been talking about different things to make. I think one lady's actually going to make a pretzel and stuff it with macaroni and cheese and bake it.
Oh.
We have a lot of stuff like that. Macaroni and cheese balls.
Wow.
Sourdough bowl with macaroni and cheese. So there's
Good thing I didn't
macaroni
eat
and cheese
breakfast.
with bologna, macaroni and cheese with sausage. There's all kinds of different macaroni and cheese themed dishes.
And that starts at 1100 hours today and goes till 1300 hours. And they do this the first Friday of every month. So come on down and join us here at the Warrior Healing Center. Michael Zehr, Marion Short, thank you again so much for joining us. Fun Food Fridays, that's what it's called. Thank you. Fun Food Fridays. Okay, everybody, take care. Have a great day.